Hi, everyone. Welcome to the fifth in the series of the fall Pennsylvania chapter fall webinar series. Tom Au is going to be talking to us today about air quality monitoring and the Purple Air monitor. Before we do that, let me do a little housekeeping. Of course, please keep your microphones on mute while Tom is presenting. We'll have time for a discussion and Q&A after he completes his slides. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, put questions in the chat. I'll try to facilitate those questions as best I can, but I think we've got a small crowd and we can probably just have a discussion. And with that, I introduce Tom Au, our chapter conservation chair.
Well, thank you, Jim. I'm Tom Au. I've been with the chapter quite a long time, and I recently had been working with the various groups in putting up purple air monitors. But before we get into that, I wanted to give you a little bit of background of why the purple air monitor is a good fit in the overall scheme of monitoring air pollution. So next slide. The Federal Clean Air Act requires the Environmental Protection Agency to establish not only public health standards for the ambient air, which includes ozone, particulate matter, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, etc., but also requires EPA and the states to establish emission limits for individual sources of air pollution such that they can, in the aggregate, meet the ambient air quality standards no matter where you live. Now, in order to ensure that the air quality is being maintained, the Clean Air Act also requires EPA to establish a nationwide air quality monitoring network. And that's where the rub is. Next slide. Where EPA has established air quality standards for all these pollutants, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, ozone, lead, and particulate matter, PM 2.5. Now, tonight we're just going to be talking about PM 2.5, fine particulate, the smallest particles that you actually can't see, and they're adversely affect our health and our lungs. So because there's such a mix of standards, EPA established a color coding scheme where it establishes an index of how clean or dirty the air is. So the break-even point is about 100 on the index scale, where below 100 is generally clean for everybody. Above 100 is be harmful to people who are sensitive to air pollution and the general population. See, 100 is the orange line there. So for each of the pollutants involved, whether it be nitrogen oxides or sulfur dioxide, if the index is below 100, it's okay. Above 100, it's not so good. Okay, next. So for PM 2.5, the standard is 35 micrograms per cubic meter. That's a 24-hour number. So averaged over 24 hours, if the number exceeds 35, it's considered unhealthy for sensitive groups or very unhealthy if it goes above that. But again, EPA talks about it in a way they don't give you the actual numbers, they give you an index number. So if the index is above 100, then it's unhealthy for sensitive groups. Now, these little particles you see in the little in the magnifying glass, that's a PM 2.5 particle next to human hair. So it's so small, so ultra fine that it will slip through your nose and into the deepest recesses of your lungs. And that's what we're trying to measure. Next. So when the EPA or the local meteorologist expects that there will be a high concentration of fine particulate over the next 24 hours, the DEP or EPA will declare an air quality action day that's saying, if you're sensitive to air pollution, stay indoors. So we do generally see that for PM 2.5 over the winter months. And during the summer months, we see exceedances of the ozone standards on an 8-hour average regularly. So over, I think this past summer, we've had in southeastern Pennsylvania about 10 days where there was an air quality action day for ozone, and for I keep track of South Central Pennsylvania, about half a dozen days over the course of the year for fine particulate exceeding the 24-hour average. Next. So if you go to the EPA website to look up what your air quality is, basically go to the airnow.gov website and you put in your zip code or city, and it'll show it a map. Next. First, it'll show you a little meter. It says the air quality is good for Carlisle. This was for Carlisle on Sunday. And it was generally good around the South Central Pennsylvania. I mean, you go further down in the EPA website. Next slide. You see a map, and then this is saying generally air quality is pretty good across the region. And the actual index number was 33, well below the 100, which is the break point for poor air quality. And this is true of the mid-Atlantic states. The next slide. And these are the actual readings from the official DEP EPA monitoring stations in South Central Pennsylvania around Harrisburg. So the actual index numbers were 20s, 24, up to 42 in the Lancaster area. Now, these are stations which have a little bit more sophisticated particulate matter readings, monitoring the equipment than we would have. But those were the readings in these areas. However, if you look on the next slide, you look at the purple air monitors in that area, you'll find that there were it agrees with EPA for the most part in the Harrisburg, Lancaster area. But note there were 2 red spots of purple air monitoring stations just west of Carlisle, where they were reading well over 150. Okay, so in these instances, purple air monitors picked up air pollution locally that the DEP monitors did not pick up. And that's the virtue of purple ear monitors, that they're more widely dispersed. They can pick up local instances of air pollution that the EPA would not find. And these monitors could have picked up like brush fires or people burning wood waste or other things that might have been going on locally. And that's sort of why we, the Sierra Club, would like to see more of these monitors located in our communities, because the EPA, DEP monitors are not so dispersed that it can pick up local air pollution in our communities. And one of the projects that we've been working with Lancaster Group on is trying to get more purple air monitors located in areas where we suspect some unauthorized open burning is occurring. So, oh, by the way, the slides that you saw earlier were screenshots Sunday evening, about 6 p.m. of the same area. So this was about 6:30 p.m. of the same area that the previous slide had from EPA. So next slide, please. So what is a purple ear monitor? Okay, there are different kinds, but they're very similar. The one on the left is the one that we've been using more frequently. I'll hold in my hand a jar of moisturizers. That's about the size of a purple ear monitor. And so they're mounted on outside on a fence post, on a railing, on a wall, and they you're connected to the internet, and they've a power source. And what they do is pick up fine particulate. Next slide, please. From these little sensors on the bottom. There are actually two sensors, which they're laser sensors, and they take a 5-second reading averaged over 2 minutes, and they transmit this information via the Wi-Fi internet back to the Purple Air headquarters in Utah, where the information is then placed on a map. So this is real-time data. You don't have to wait hours for it. So what it picks up 10 minutes ago is instantly displayed on the map. So if you go back to the previous slide, South Central Pennsylvania, one more. Okay, this is forward one. Okay, yeah, this is about 6:07 p.m. Sunday evening, and these are real-time readings from that evening of everything that Purple Air monitor, all the Purple Air monitors that are located in South Central PA, and it's I guess comforting to know what's going on in your neighborhood, what's going on across the river, and then what's going on in Boiling Springs, much further down the road from me. Okay, let's go back to the sensor information. Okay, so they work continuously There's a laser inside the device, and they just basically count particles and in the air. Next, please. And in order to use it, you need an external power supply, which is you have to buy separately, and it looks like a little charger that we have for charging bicycles or something. But it requires the outdoor power supply, which is connected to the bottom of the sensor, and it also requires Wi-Fi. Next, please. Okay, and there it is connected, connected to the power supply running down the post, and it could be mounted via duct tape or these plastic ties, or it could be just screwed into a wooden fence post. And next, please. So the basic requirement is, you're monitoring outside air. You find a good location, maybe next to your house, maybe in your garden or somewhere. But it has to be connected to AC power, and there has to be strong enough Wi-Fi signal that the device can transmit it back through your Wi-Fi system to the Purple Air network. And finally, you have to register your device on their map to see it display on the regional map. The trick of it is one of the things that we've encountered is that you have to have strong enough Wi-Fi that it doesn't break the connection, from time to time. So in some instances, you might need a Wi-Fi extender inside your home or outside your home to make sure that there's a Wi-Fi signal continuously. Next, please. Okay, and here's some, caveats. You really don't want it next to a external pollution source such as your wood stove chimney or a fire pit that you're running, or your barbecue system, because it's basically going to tell you, yeah, you got a lot of pollution next to your house because you're burning wood or charcoal. And the sensor can't be too close to the ground because it's affected by snow or rain or or maybe grasshoppers jumping into it. Okay, and then you do need to register it for it to give any useful information to the rest of the community. So you put it, when you register it, you put it on the map, and Purple Air you can call it whatever you want. You can call it X-Men's monitor or whatever label you would like. And it doesn't have to be precise on the map because you're looking at measuring in your neighborhood. So if you don't want to know that anyone to know that there's a Purple Air monitor at your house, you can move it the map location a couple of houses down the street. So those are things that work. We have one located near the Eisenhower School in Camp Hill, and the neighbor doesn't want to say it's right at his house, so we moved the map location just closer to the road near the Eisenhower School. Next. And most people, commonly use Purple Air to gauge what the air quality for that particular day is. around their neighborhood. You can also, and that's the way we like to have people use it. You know, if you're going out for a bike ride or a run in the morning, you might want to check the purple air monitor just to see that the air pollution conditions are really conducive to running. You know, that you can have buildup of air pollution overnight, and it might not be a good day for running. Okay. Graphs can be downloaded, charts and graphs can be downloaded from the Purple Air Network. You click on the location of the device, and it'll show you a 7-day graph of what the air pollution was in the past 7 days. And you can do it you can do research on it. You can download a whole bunch of data from your zip code or from your surrounding counties. But because Purple Air maintains all this historic data, and if you're a air pollution researcher, that's a very valuable tool. But you have to pay for the data. It's not real expensive, but they charge for the data. I guess that's one way of making money from the system. Okay, next, please. Okay, now, now sort of the takeaway, it's very important to determine location where you want to monitor. We don't want, a monitor every 5 houses down the street. We would like to have them, every, several 100 houses maybe. And it just to get a strategic view of what the air quality is in a neighborhood. You could look to see if there are already purple air monitors in your neighborhood. Maybe your area is adequately monitored. Where I am currently in an apartment, broadcasting from an apartment in DC, there are 2 each located 2 blocks away. So I sort of feel I don't have to put up another monitor right here because we're adequately served. And finally, your local Sierra Club group it has been working on trying to establish a network of monitors, and in the where they're trying to establish strategic, monitors near air pollution sources, and where they have someone who's going to be analyzing all the data. So in Lancaster, we spoke to a professor at Franklin Marshall, who is also trying to establish a network strategically where near areas where there is suspected high air pollution. So these are considerations about whether to purchase one, whether they ask your local Sierra Club group to purchase some, and where to place the monitors. And so that's what I have, and I'm welcome to question. Jim, do you have any in the queue?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. While I'm digging that up, I'll ask a quick question. I thought I remember somebody telling me that at least in Philadelphia, the EPA monitors were like on the tops of buildings, and not where, people's noses are. Is that a general thing, like in Harrisburg? Are the EPA monitors, they do that so that people don't mess with them. They put them up on the rooftops, but it doesn't that impact the kind of data that they get?
Yes, it does. Yeah, you really do need the monitors to be closer to.
Right, so that's why the purple air monitors are a good complement
And
to.
I don't
Yeah.
know specifically about Philadelphia. I know the DEP has established several monitors in South Central Pennsylvania, and they're like 1 or 2 stories up. They're not high. So I think the DEP is doing an adequate job in height, uh, in determining how high to put the monitors. Um, as far as vandalism, we have not had any problems with vandalism. And then all the monitors that I've installed, and I've done probably a dozen or more monitors across South Central Pennsylvania. And we have one in downtown Carlisle on the square. And it's been broadcasting for years and um, not a hint of vandalism of any kind.
Okay, thanks. Sydney notes that there have been studies about the relationships between air quality and human health. Can you speak to that? I mean, is it generally particulate matter cause lung cancer or asthma, or what are the common impacts of bad air?
Okay. Well, I'll speak to fine particulate PM 2.5. That's the stuff that we just talked about, the tiny particles that are respirable to get into the lungs. And yes, these particles can cause lung cancer. They can cause neurological problems as well. They're so small, they get between the blood-brain barrier and can cause problems. Uh, and these are really generally the most dangerous particles in regard to public health. That's why um, EPA and public health specialists spend so much time thinking about reducing fine particulate. Of course, they're the same particles in cigarette smoke, secondhand smoke, and such. On the other hand, wood fires and other things produce larger particles, and these particles can also be very damaging to your health.
So last year, when we were seeing that smoke from Canada wildfires, was that PM 2.5 or was that bigger?
That was PM 2.5. The stuff that drifted south toward the US was PM 2.5 and was picked up by all the mining stations across Pennsylvania. And remember, we had purple air days. That's when the highest level of air quality alert for those days in July of 2023. And the air was really bad. And for extended period too.
Yeah. Eden asks about the effect of high humidity days. Does that and the moisture, does that affect the sensors? And do you know anything about that?
I don't think that affects the sensors at all. They, I I was reading about that in some of the comments back and forth. There's a community website that Purple Air runs, and they're is running commentary from people who have the sensors. And apparently there's a fan inside inside the little sensor, and that somehow compensates for the humidity.
So kind of related to that, how long do these sensors, how long does a purple air sensor last, and how do I know when it's going bad?
Oh, okay. Um, I read that they can last, about 3 years, but my experience is that they last much longer than that. Um, we've had, monitors installed and, before the pandemic, and that's 3 years, 4 years ago, and they've been running constantly since then, and with no problem. So I guess when you get erratic results that are not in line with monitors and the rest of the community around you, then your monitor's gone bad. You can actually the sensors themselves are replaceable. You can order those little laser counters and repair them yourself if you would.
Yeah, go ahead, Sydney.
Thanks. I just want to correct one thing. I made a point in my comments that just the fact that there's a correlation between the presence of these PM2.5s in high concentration and various health conditions does not mean that the PM2.5s themselves are responsible. It could be other parts of the environment that people are exposed to that could be responsible. This is one of the problems with all of these so-called observational studies, where you start looking at populations and exposures of one kind. You could almost always find something that correlates with something, but it doesn't mean that necessarily there's a causal relationship between them. So we do not know that particulate air pollution causes dementia, Parkinson's, or whatever. But we do know that there is a correlation, which may have more to do with the environment that these occur in, as a whole, rather than the specific entity. And as regards to detectors, it's my understanding that ordinary smoke detectors in our houses also operate on detecting fine particles. Is that not correct?
Yes, the smoke detectors, detect basically fine particles in the air, and once they detect, it'll trigger the alarm. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Thanks.
Any other questions for Tom?
I just want to add,
Sure.
not really a question, but the particle particulate matter 2.5 actually has been proven to cause these various diseases. It's one of those contaminants that has been studied for so long that there's plenty of information, and it's not really that association with these various diseases is not really in question. You're right, there could be other things in the air as well causing problems, that's for sure. But PM 2.5 is maybe studied more than almost any other type of air pollutant.
I'd be interested in seeing some of those data if you have them available, Carol.
Well, it's easy to find on the web. I don't
Yeah.
have it right now. It's easy.
No, I do. Yeah, because I track the stuff, and but I wasn't aware that a causal association had been established.
Tom, I can bring up the purple air site. We can play around
Sure.
if you want. So this is what it looks like zoomed out, and then we can see if we
Well,
can find Pennsylvania.
I have a couple of questions about,
Yeah, go ahead.
actually a few questions about using it. So one is, I read online that the EPA, in order to use the data to, include smaller areas within their air quality estimations, that they recommend that they make an adjustment to the purple air numbers, because the PM 2.5 tends to be higher with purple air than the more controlled EPA, more more scientifically controlled EPA air monitors. So I was wondering if you said that you could, Tom, that you could, if you, I didn't quite follow, but if you can apply to the EPA to submit your data to them. Is that what you said?
No, the EPA recognizes that purple air generally correlates to what their monitors show. In fact, when you're looking at forest fires, you know, EPA actually recommends looking at purple air data as well. But and knowing that there is a slight deviation, the purple air people have an EPA correction factor
Yeah,
built
That's what I'm
in
asking about.
into their monitors. So when you set it up by default, it applies that correction factor.
I see. Okay, that's good to know. And then, so I guess another question was, are you tonight is the Sierra Club kind of saying, look, this is good for all of us, do it, benefit from it, follow your own air quality? Or are you saying, is the Sierra Club thinking about or considering aggregating or I don't know, I don't mean something quite so data heavy as that, but somehow creating more of a coalition of individuals who use purple air? Is there something beyond the individual, or are you really emphasizing the individual benefits of it?
Okay, well, let me say on the last point, there is something beyond the individual, and it's various organizations that have been working to aggregate the data and do some analysis with it and try to draw some conclusions. The Lehigh Valley Breeze Project, which is sponsored by Lehigh and Northampton County Commissioners, is one of those projects where they're saying, well, we'll fool these sensors in our community. Let's see what we can learn from them. Okay. On the other side of it, we welcome, you know, all kinds of researchers to use this data and see what other conclusions they can draw from it. And Purple Air, you know, collects the data, is making it available for research.
Yeah, so in the chat, people are citing other groups that are collecting, I guess, community science data. I'm not sure. Looks like, or
Yes.
at least purple.
Yeah, there are groups like in North Carolina, there's the Carolina,
Lackawanna, Utah, Ohio.
yeah,
Minneapolis.
local community groups, you know, or air pollution groups, are using the data to see, what they can learn about, pollution sources in their community, how it affects them, whether there are, you know, hot spots of air pollution in their community.
I guess the one last question I have is that, so I'm someone who does stream monitoring and using constant in stream continuous data collection, and you have to, and that requires the application of quality control measures so that you can tell eventually when your sensor is not doesn't seem to be accurate anymore. There are a few ways to do it, but there are some systematic ways that you can do that. So I was wondering, Purple Rain must address this issue of quality control and how to know that your sensor is working properly. I didn't look up the manual. I didn't try looking up the book. Maybe I'll do that while we're talking. Sometimes they're very easy to access.
Okay, I don't know that there's a systematic quality control regimen in place. I know that
Here it is. Yep.
that if your monitor goes or your sensor goes out of whack, you pretty much know right away. If it's 0 every day, you know it's not recording. So I don't know whether it can go haywire and on the other side where it just shows extreme readings that are not physically possible.
But it's just I guess a point to be made that if one uses it, you do have to just keep an eye open for when the values don't seem right. And then you can contact Purple Air and talk to them about it, you know, do a little troubleshooting. It's important to be always trying to connect the data with what's happening in the environment.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. You know, when I look at a map of you know, a dozen sensors, I say there's one of these seem not right, or you know, there is this area seem like it's much higher than the area right next to it.
Yeah, so I think that's an argument for not being overly, you know, critical about having sensors next to each other. Sometimes it's good, so you have a correlation. And if they're, you know, a couple of houses apart and they disagree, you can look into why. It could be that, you know, somebody's, you know, going out on the front porch and smoking a cigar every day at 5 o'clock, right? But it can also be a way to calibrate. So,
And, you know,
yeah.
Tom made the point that sometimes they can be, purple air can be elevated because someone's burning wood in their wood
Yeah.
stove. And maybe people don't realize how they're affecting the air that they're breathing by burning wood stoves or something like that. So it sounds like it's, yeah, a really great way to get that fine view of the air that you're breathing.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed on a particularly cold night in the winter, you might see elevated PM 2.5 readings in Purple Air because everybody's lighting a wood with
Well, I guess oil burners too.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Tom, I was poking around on the site. You wanna try to tell us what those little pop-up things mean when you click on
Okay.
them? Yeah, so I just
Yeah,
zoomed in.
click on the one that says 63.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's looks like an outlier.
Okay. So you on the graph to your left is a 7-day chart of the readings from that particular monitor or sensor, and it shows a couple of peaks.
That
around
crossed the 100 boundary, right?
Yeah,
Here's the 100 boundaries between the yellow and the orange.
yeah. So you know, so to vote that could okay. So all we know that there were some high readings on those particular days at a certain time, and we don't know why. We just know that they were high at that time. But you can download the data from that sensor. There's a
So Tom, somebody was saying that if this is at somebody's home, they could add notes into the wiki here, into Purple Air, and say, well, at 5 o'clock, a garbage truck, you know, was doing its thing, or there was some construction next door. Do you know how I could see those notes from here, or to somebody?
I don't know. I have not tried adding notes with.
Maybe
No.
that's after it's downloaded.
Yeah, but you could do that. Yeah, one of the important things is also is if you're going to keep it diary on this, is also check the wind direction and speeds for your neighborhood, because that could give you a clue as to where the high readings are coming from. You know, if the wind's blowing from the west, is it coming from something upwind of you?
Yeah, there's this red dot
Yeah, it's red. Yeah,
near Dave
yeah.
in Reading. It seemed like it was pretty low all week, or
Yeah, and then there's
the last
and
day.
there's
It
and there's
spiked
something
up.
going on in the last 6 hours.
Yeah, well, maybe it was a wildfire.
Yeah.
It's kind of out
Yeah,
in
a
the
lot,
middle
a
of
lot of these
by
could be
itself.
brush fires
Right.
or, you know, open burning somewhere.
Okay.
And and I have downloaded data for, you know, like different stations in an area for like a 2 week period and see what it looks like. So that's possible. Um, but it's very, I find that it's important when there are things going on. For instance, if there's a inversion, a temperature inversion in winter, well, you'll find that early in the morning, there'll be higher, much higher readings from purple air, and it'll be across multiple um, sensors. And so it's not just your neighborhood, it'll be upriver, it'll be downriver, it'll be, you know, all across the area. So that's a, you know, very strong indication when we see the weather forecast for a temporary inversion, that the smoke layer is being trapped and it's affecting ground
Right.
level air quality.
Right. So Eden asked in the chat, and maybe Eden, you want to talk to this, but she rents an apartment on a third floor. And so if she puts something on her balcony, would that be not useful because it's, you know, on the third floor away from street level walkers?
Oh, well, it will be useful to you because it's telling you what the air that's coming into your apartment uh, is like. It won't be useful in telling us a little bit about the ground level pollution in your neighborhood.
Sharon, do you want to talk about this app you use to add notes? Okay, well, Sharon added in the chat that she uses an app called Tembu, which is, I guess, connected with the Purple Air platform.
Really? Okay. I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah,
How do you spell that?
it's in the chat.
Oh, okay.
TEMBOO. And Sharon's not in a quiet place. So anything else for Tom? I have a couple more slides to finish this up. Let's see. Oh, sorry, I don't know how that got on there. So as you know, this is a webinar series. This was our fifth in the series, and we've got two more still to come. November 21st is some stories about fracking in Western Pennsylvania, presented by a couple of volunteers with the Center for Coalfield Justice. And on December 5th, our last webinar is electric vehicle myths with some of our transportation committee volunteers, which reminds me that I should say that these webinars are being hosted by the various chapter conservation teams. This one, of course, is hosted by the air quality team. And if you're interested in participating on that team or joining their email list, contact Tom or me. And I think there was a question in the registration page if you wanted to join that, and I'll make sure to add you to those lists. And finally, this session is being recorded, and you can find it on the Sierra Club Pennsylvania chapter YouTube channel, and I'll include a link to that recording with my follow-up mail. I hope to get to it tomorrow, but it might not be till Saturday. And that's it. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Tom, for sharing your knowledge with us. And have a good night. And it's game day. You haven't turned into a Commanders fan, you and Justina, have you, Tom?
No. Thank you. Good night all.
Yeah, thank you.